Wow. What an amazing questline and ending to a raid. That was phenomenal. That was so good. I can't wait to see what's next. Right, future Khono? About that. Greetings and salutations, everyone. Oh geez, oh my, oh whatever that was. Yeah, I don't think I need to pepper it in too much here. The post-leveling MSQ came and went, like a fart in the wind. So today, we're going to talk about what went down. For the most part, it was okay, but the rest left a sour taste. Like, if it was a lemon, but the lemon was coated with sugar and had a tiny bit of mold on it. Analogies aside, it did not stick the landing at all. Like, this was the jailer poking his head out and saying something levels of bad. Yeah, that bad. Shadowlands level of bad, people. Which is absolutely unfortunate, and it makes you wonder where it all went wrong. We were off to such a good start, and for whatever reason, this landed poorly. I mean, I know the reason, but the video is less fun when I don't get to say it immediately. So, buckle up, strap in, it's time we dive into this train wreck that is the Midnight Initial Campaign. And why exactly I think it fumbled as big as it did. Alright, starting off big, this one is more of a personal take, but I've seen plenty of other people also touch on it too, and it's an all-reliable complaint at this point on the channel, that I ought to sell as merch at this point. But why exactly were the Blood Elves struggling to get reinforcements here? And why didn't they ever contact the Horde or the Alliance? Ever? The Forsaken are right next door. There is a portal to Orgrimmar that had fleeing refugees lined outside of it. Just talk to the Horde Council and gather an army, like the Battle for Lor'themar or the Broken Shore 2.0. And the Alliance too, sure, why not? Obviously, always include them. Always include both the factions. That's what I've been saying for years now. Now, I shrugged it off initially, like, I hate it, and I don't like it, but it's whatever. Everyone and their mother knows I love the Horde, and I want more involvement from them, especially Thrall and Rexxar. But we don't always get that, clearly. We haven't really gotten that level of factional involvement since the Battle for Azeroth, and it's a shame. The best assets we've received for the Horde is limited to housing. Almost no mention in the story, just housing assets. Not one Orc or Tauren has been a main player in the MSQ, nothing like that, and don't even get me started on how they were treated in the past expansion. The Blood Elves are in a dire strait. Their army has been demoralized, and the Light Vanguard, who were pretty worthless beyond keeping the Sunwell lit, were crushed or vanished or disenchanted, this VIA, the Variant Rin, and so on. So, really, the best course of action is not to summon the full might of the Horde and the Alliance, but rather unite the Elves to take back the Sunwell. Genius idea, Arator. Why couldn't they summon everyone to Silvermoon and have the Horde Council dictate on how they should fight back against the Void? I can think of 3 reasons, so bear with me as we speculate a little. The portals would have been too strange to summon that many forces to Silvermoon City. They literally have Oculus and a whole network of mages to rely on to summon an army to Silvermoon, which they only used to summon the Night Elves. And again, Orgrimmar and Stormwind portals are already right there, and if it's really an issue in summoning them into the city lore-wise, then why not open one to Lor'themar or Gilneas' borders to allow ships to pass through too, maybe? What about all of those ships off the coast of Khazlogar with all of those Horde and Alliance reinforcements that we brought there? Surely you can move them over to Silvermoon. 2. The Horde are busy with their own problems against the Void or something else. Okay, I can give Blizzard the benefit of the doubt sometimes whenever they make an excuse like this, but when the chips are down and we are at odds with a cosmic force that would devour all life without a second thought, then it's time to buckle down and rally your respective factions. It's never outright said, too, but could you imagine the rage and bitterness if Blizz just said that they were busy? Yeah, we'd be understandably pissed. 3. The Horde are unaware of just how dire the situation is. Of course, it's normal for people in the world to be unaware of current events, but we're not in the real world, are we? This reason is probable, but it's still one of the worst ones if they could come up with. Reason being is Xal'atath, who, if you recall, basically nommed all of Dalaran recently, which would be grounds for concern, right? Also, you had Liadrin and Lor'themar communicating within Orgrimmar, Stormwind, and Dornogal to summon folks to the Sunwell. So you'd think someone like Thrall, Rokon, and Orgrimmar, or whoever's in command of Stormwind right now, to pick up and answer the call. It makes zero sense to not have Lor'themar call in his Horde allies to help defend his homeland, and he's a freaking leader. He's a member on the Horde Council. On the other hand, Dezco and Chandra's Feathermoon, whom we encounter during Arator's journey and also when they post-leveling MSQ respectively in Belemeth, were unaware of the Void's assault too. So, we're to assume that both factions are blind and just deaf to these threats. Even after 20 years and more of conflict, strife, and even being at odds with one another, there's no army at Xal'atath's doorstep, no alliance or Horde representation there, just the vanguard of the lights, and then the reunified elven tribes. Hogwash. Absolutely fucking hogwash. Simply put, a Warcraft expansion without any faction representation, especially without the Horde, feels like a letdown and ultimately a flop, and this is not the first time that we've been dealing with this sort of storytelling. For some reason, they're afraid of using the Horde, and it's becoming more and more apparent with every expansion, with every chapter, and it needs to be put to a rest. It needs to be fixed. It needs to be clarified. The story we were given felt forced to keep the main focus on the Elven tribes, which they wanted to tell, but it wasn't the story that we needed. Warcraft in its very essence is about the factions. It's about the conflict between both the Alliance and the Horde, what they share in that. But it's also putting any difference to band together and fight back against evil forces that would take Azeroth for their own purposes. We've seen that plenty of times, whether it was during the war against the Lich King, during the Legion's invasion, or even during the Cataclysm. So why wouldn't the Horde be a pivotal driving force in helping the Blood Elves that are their allies, a race that has been embedded in the Horde's lifeblood since Burning Crusade? It feels absolutely defeating, especially after shouting it plenty of times prior to Midnight's release, and I believe it would have been a huge payoff to have seen both the factions join together once again, a la Wrathgate style, and help the elves secure the Sunwell from the Devouring Host's slimy, voidy grip. But we didn't get that. No, we didn't. Anyone who has met Arator prior to Midnight knows how little he had to do with World of Warcraft's narrative. To me, he was a nothing burger, and during the leveling, he was a pretty decent burger with average condiments. But now, after the post-leveling MSQ, he's a nasty patty. I genuinely despise him. I feel like he's being built up to be someone like Anduin Wrynn, and yet all he has ever done is pontificate, repeat every single plot point in the narrative, like the writers during Season 5 of Stranger Things. I've never seen that show, but hey, apparently that's what happens. And he just hogs the spotlight, like all Windrunners do. Did I mention he's a Windrunner? Yeah, that's probably why I'm also sick of them as much as I am Arator. He's preachy, he's a know-it-all, and he reeks of somebody's first OC, who's the son of Turalyon and Illyria, and was trained by Lor'themar Theron himself. Yuck. Pick a lane and stick to only one, Arator. Ugh. I really wanted to like him, as it seemed like they were trying to make us like him too. The only redeeming quality was during the leveling, where they had him interesting and charming, even going as far as to taking a stabbing for Zul'jin. Hell yeah. And his understanding of the various faiths of the light with Fal was a fun ride to be on. But I'll admit, I was already skeptical of him as time was passing. I wanted to give him, though, a solid chance. However, the moment Turalyon and Illyria went MIA, he suddenly is in charge. Why? Why is this guy, when his only notable trait is being the son of these two legends, is making orders and is leading the charge with these elves? He has no ranking, no leadership experience, nothing. Why is he leading the charge and demanding Elven Unity? This was not earned and not properly done for him at all. A common and running theme for this campaign. Hell, Bran frickin' Bronzebeard would be better experienced than Arator, and that's even considering his web-trapping escapades too. He did lead a siege on Ulduar at one point, so props to Bran, generally. This is Lor'themar's city. He is the leader of the Blood Elves, and yet for some reason, we're following this man and his poor haircut into battle. Lor'themar deserved to have at least one moment as the leader of the Sin'dorei, yet all we're gonna get is his spit line at the start. Huh. This man, Arator, is throwing quips at the woman who possibly murdered his parents. He's not taking her threat seriously, and it comes off as disingenuous. If he's not taking this seriously, then why should I, honestly? I'm just completely tired of Arator after this mess, and it's gonna take a miracle for me to end up liking him again. I find him insufferable, and there were so many better characters to focus on than him. The story is insisting on him to hog the spotlight, and quite frankly, I'm so tired of him. Next saga, or whatever the next chapter, next expansion, whatever, if they ever decide to do one, should focus on Thrall and Anduin as the star players. They're far better than this disaster of a character. As much as I like Xal'atath as a concept for a villain, I think I'm starting to get a teeny bit fatigued with her. Okay, actually quite a bit. The same shtick of her holding whatever her schemes from our eyes and not really giving us too many clues on what her plan and goals are, it's driving me nuts in the worst way. Give us something, anything, to prelude what's coming. Arator gave us his entire plan and scheme and hinted what was to come, all in the drop of a hat before he dipped. We know more about Xali's plan from Arator than we do from her. One has to wonder why I like him so much besides him looking and sounding so cool. Yeah, it's because he gives us the information that we need to run on what his plans are. And she keeps having us dead to rights, and instead is just opting to leave now. Remind you of somebody? Oh yeah, we're dipping into jailer territory again, but it's nothing new. Even in Raszageth and Farak, were vague with their schemes and their plans. Much as I like the other two here, as much as I like the Incarnates, that doesn't excuse this trope. It's bad. Do something new or different as to why we're not killed, besides the villain getting bored. Oh, and Sylvanas somehow returned. Never thought we'd get into Rise of Skywalker levels of writing. That's just bad, yo. But it is interesting to note about Sylvanas' cameo. Xal'atath didn't account for Sylvanas to make an appearance and just left the battle when things were about to get interesting. Why? Could it be because she fears death magic and vice versa? It was foreshadowed in the Windrunner comics years ago where the Void reacts negatively towards Sylvanas. While she does compose herself to be calm and under pressure, I would have liked to have seen Xal'atath react fearfully, then vaguely, I guess, cower away. You know, again, it's that vagueness that is really the issue here. But Windrunners, man, we're completely inundated with Windrunner content. We could very well call World of Warcraft Keeping Up with the Windrunners, and make it a whole-ass reality show. Honestly, we could start be calling it World of Windrunner Craft, for crying out loud. We've seen the same song and dance from Xal'atath. Do something evil, then mog on us, the heroes before she retreats, something Illyria, become who you truly are, yada yada. It's old, it's tired, it's not stake-raising. We needed something that truly pushes us over the line. Something that doesn't include killing a horde leader, by the way. I know that's their favorite. I know they like doing that. But no. We also don't even deal with the ramifications of the damages done afterwards, which is weird too. And the result of what went down, Xal'atath and Devouring Host are headed towards the World Soul. Illyria and Turalyon are missing, presumed dead, and the most jarring thing is that no one, besides Ramoth and Umbric, are talking about it. It's completely glossed over in favor of the Dawnwell. And speaking of such a well... Now, we knew from the go-ahead that Elven tribes would unite together to face a dark and catastrophic force. We knew that would play a major part in Midnight's own story. Did it play out in a major and fulfilling way, though? Was it given time that it needed to make sense?
Absolutely f***ing not.
In the campaign, we get one, maybe two questlines that get us to the climax and push us towards the resolution in no time whatsoever, without any horde or alliance to back us up. This feels almost alien to what Warcraft is about, instead showcasing elves. No orcs, no humans, it's just elves. Specifically, we see the bonds between the High Elves, Blood Elves, Void Elves, Night Elves, and the Nightborn, and all needed their own time in the sun. Now, it doesn't seem like an issue at first glance, but when comparing this to the Suramar campaign, you can see some of the glaring issues. The latter had months to work with and felt like it gave the care, it gave the time, the energy it needed to make it all flow really well. However, this is a disaster that is dragging us by our ears against the ground and throwing us into the lion's den and saying, it'll be fine. The Night Elves wants the Sunwell gone entirely, which is entirely justified, considering how often we have seen this fountain being sought after for nefarious purposes, be it the Scourge, Legion, or now the Void. The Blood Elves are understandably iffy about it, but give it a hard maybe. Does this go anywhere? Not really. Apropos of something, it doesn't give a reference to how they have teamed up in the past too against the Scourge and against Illidan during the Third War or during Frozen Throne, which would have been a treat to the diehard Warcraft 3 fans like myself. Kinda a shame too, really, because Maiev is even present to make mention of those times. The Nightborn have a long kinship established with the Blood Elves and the Horde. Doesn't really need that much explanation as to why they shouldn't fight alongside the other elves, though I will say it's strange at how little Thalrisra was present from the start, especially since she is Lor'themar's wife, and should have had her own level of power here to display in the city, and shouldn't just be cooped up in that frickin' tower there. Now, the Void Elves were given the most care because they had time to simmer in our thoughts, especially as they become more central to the plot to save Quel'thelas. It's given focus in the leveling, both in Eversong and Voidstorm, as they can be trusted and why they care, making them all teaming up far more believable and a good payoff, an example shown in Ramoth and Umbric. Their interactions show how dichotomous they are in the game, but seated deep in the lore, they really show much care and support for each other, which is what was felt missing from the MSQ entirely, and with the others. And finally, the one I find the hardest to believe, the Silver Sun Compact. which is the tentative agreement between the Silver Covenant and the Sunravers, both of whom had a tumultuous, bloodied history. Both factions had ample reason to hate each other, and it required more than just King Anastarion's friggin' crown to start peace talks. This is the same Silver Covenant that wiped out the Blood Elves, aka the Sunreavers, from the Purge of Dalaran. And fortunately, the story does treat the Silver Covenant mostly as the ones in the wrong. But to solve this dispute, and that's putting it lightly, it does away with them both. Both factions dissolve, both factions told to play nice, and fuse together. Okay, you see, you can go ahead and dissolve both the factions altogether, but to force them to merge together afterwards, even if it's for the sake of elvenkind and to protect their city, I don't know much about politics, but I do know it doesn't feel at all natural to have the two drop every reason to hate one another and band together and fuse into one super faction. This is some scary stuff if they ever tried this with the Alliance and Horde. That's even worse. Where's the pushback from its members? Where's the hostility? It might seem like peaches and cream on top, but mark my words within, there will one day be a huge pushback that will ultimately immediately fracture the two back into the way that they were. It better. Conflicting one another based off of their history. And then to address the void elephant in the room, we have to tend to the Dark Well. All of those elves come together not only to hold the void back, but to reclaim the elves' land. Using the powers of Liadrin's light and the water from the Night Elves' Moonwell, fruit from the Arkandor supplied by the Nightborn, a void crystal from Umbric, and Anastarion's crown. I don't know how that last one helps, but whatever helps them sleep at night. All that's to create the Dawnwell. Wow, really creative name there. Just like the Silver Sun Compact. Genius. It's such a shame that an arc brimming with so much potential ended so quickly and gave us a very dissatisfying conclusion. Years of lore and thoroughly woven storytelling were completely rushed through to give us an ending that seemingly mirrors the Burning Crusades ending too. I feel like such an interesting concept was missed entirely here. Having the Blood Elves need to reject the Sunwell and move on from Wells entirely could have been a good way to end this story, especially when it was pushed by the Night Elves. They've already got the Arkandor fruit from the Nightborn to help with their addictions, but it's not instantaneous and not as numerous, which can lead to its own cracks and its own problems. It's not flawless, and that can result in desperation again down the line. This kind of just fixes it all way too nicely. The Sin'dorei had a lot of edge. They were seen as badass, lynx with teeth, and the years since their introduction they began to lose it. And this arc finalized that. It finalized it. The Dawnwell, it just solves everything all just far too quickly and far too easily. It's a cheap end to an already rushed and unearned story. The elves coming together to stop a greater threat temporarily, that's fine and believable, but some of its entities needed way more convincing and polishing to get here. And also, it's just far more interesting when the elves and really just the races of Azeroth don't get along entirely. The age-old Warcraft conflict is built by that tenuous pact between the Alliance and Horde evaporating. A good narrative depends on conflict, especially the world of Azeroth, the world of Warcraft. Had we had it our way, we would have seen the heroes unify the scattered elven tribes from the get-go during the leveling campaign. The Nightborn were already on board with it, but took convincing during it to bring the Void Elves into the fray. If not during the leveling, then it could have been the overarching plot for a patch or the whole expansion. This just needed far more time to work, and it didn't. It fumbled so badly here, where I'm just shaking my head and screaming most of the time when I was questing through it myself. Unfortunately, the saving grace here is that it's over. and we can move on and focus on better plots and better stories. What's sad here is that I am the last person that should say that. I should be excited about what's to come next because the story was good, not because it was so bad that I do not want to linger on it. Surprisingly, I really enjoyed the stay a while and listen conversation between Anduin, Ferin, and Velen. After the Dawnwell was created, I'm always invested in these sorts of conversations, especially when they have the same energy compared to Thrall and Anduin at the end of War Within's launch campaign. But other than that, that's how things went down, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm disappointed. And already, they have me nervous for what happens with Zul'Jin going into 12.1, assuming we get an Atal Utek patch. If they drop the ball further than Xal'atath's dropped down into the World Core, then that will make me scared for Last Titan. That will make me scared for whatever comes after Midnight. Blizz implemented a soft-spoken philosophy to get all this content faster than they're used to, which was an exciting idea at the time, but considering the cadence of how quickly we're getting pushed through the story, I think it's time for them to slow down and let things breathe. I've been concerned for a while on just how fast this is all going, and I feel like they need to give this ship the time it needs to sail properly. The most upsetting part about all of this is that it had such a good start, and for it to have a landing that didn't even stick, but rather flop over and catch on fire, I don't know how else I can say this here, because people might assume otherwise, but I hate disliking Warcraft. I hate complaining about the lack of horde in the overall story, as that's primarily why I am even here. I don't like making videos like this, and yet I must because I want things to get better. We've seen what works, what doesn't, and I know how the team can improve upon it. I want World of Warcraft to succeed, not to fail. I want it to keep enjoying this franchise and not to quit it. But they're making me disinterested and frustrated on what is supposed to be something special. This World Soul Saga should be great, but it keeps just messing up. I'm still hoping, still praying that Midnight will stick its landing despite this massive drop in quality, but we'll just have to see and hope it gets better. I certainly hope it does. Thank you all for watching and listening. Please give me your thoughts about this. Did you enjoy the Dawnwell's finale, or are you as turned away by it as I am? Let me know down below. Anyways, thank you all for watching. I've been Chronos, your lovely time to be god and host. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more videos like this one in the future. Be sure to join the Discord for more discussions with myself and the community, and a special thanks to the patrons and YouTube community members to help keep this channel alive and well. But until next time, my friends,